Hello and welcome to Super Rugby semi-final predictions brought to you by DrivingMaul. Thank you for joining me. I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and clearly I need to get a stand for my phone if I'm going to do this portrait thing or have longer arms, one or the other. So, as I say, thank you for joining me. We're down to just 3 games left in Super Rugby. The end is swiftly approaching for the season, and for whatever you say about the convoluted structure of Super Rugby, we've ended up with the top 4 teams in the semi-finals, which isn't a bad result, let's be honest. I think last year we ended up with something similar as well. So the 2 games, are the Crusaders versus the Chiefs and the Lions hosting the Hurricanes. Now, interestingly enough, if we had used last year's rules rather than this year's rules, we would have had the Crusaders versus the Hurricanes and the Lions hosting the Chiefs, which would have helped out the 2 away teams, because the Lions were in South Africa last weekend. Sorry, the Chiefs were in South Africa last weekend and have had to travel back, whereas the Hurricanes were in Canberra, Australia, and have had to travel over to South Africa. So, yeah, as I say, it's a bit strange that the new rules have made things harder for the away teams, but that's how things go. So, the Crusaders obviously went through their season with just that 1 loss, the last loss at the end of the regular season, to the Hurricanes. The Chiefs, on the other hand, just racked up 2 losses, and those included were against away to the Stormers, which they avenged last weekend, and against the Crusaders. So can they avenge the other loss they had during the regular season? We'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, personally, I think all that travel is going to have taken it out of the Chiefs. They are Charlie Ngatai is back, which obviously helped them, but still, I think that Crusaders pack will just grind down the Chiefs in the end. And the Chiefs, let's be honest, with Retallick, Sam Cane, etc., Messam, Leach, they have a quality pack. Don't get me wrong, but it's not quite up to, well, especially the front 5 isn't quite up to the level of the Crusaders as a group. So I'm backing the Crusaders to win that game by 7. In the other match, in the early hours of Sunday morning, for those of us in New Zealand, the Lions host the Hurricanes. Now, the Hurricanes had 3 losses all season, just against the Crusaders and the Chiefs. So, yeah, against the top teams in Super Rugby. And the Lions, their only loss was away to the Jaguares in Argentina, when, for one reason or another, they didn't have their full strength side. It wasn't all down to resting players. There were family issues and injuries and stuff got in the way as well. But still, that was their only loss. And similar to last season, they made it through. They've made it through this far, and that's why all this talk that's coming out of New Zealand now is getting really old. About the Lions not deserving their place and not deserving their home semi-final because they've not played any New Zealand teams. It's starting to feel like any game that's not against the New Zealand side just doesn't really count. So a bit like when England went on that long winning run and beat the New Zealand Tier 1 record for number of consecutive wins. There was a lot of talk of, but they hadn't faced the All Blacks. Well, yeah, the All Blacks hadn't faced England. And it's not all about New Zealand sides. There are other teams in World Rugby. So, yes, the Lions deserve their place. Yes, the Lions deserve their seeding. It's not like they didn't do it last year. They did it last year as well. And they obviously beat the Chiefs in Hamilton last year. So, yeah, it's all that talk is absolute rubbish. And we should really be ignoring it. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that the New Zealand public have had enough with the New Zealand Herald, Sky, and stuff as well, and the New Zealand press. But anyway, let's get into the game. The Lions clearly had that had a bit of were pushed all the way by the Sharks, and they might be starting to get a bit of reputation of being a bit flaky in that big on the big occasion. I think it's coming down to, can Elton Yankees really handle that big occasion? He obviously got caught. He didn't have a great game against the Hurricanes in the final last year when put under pressure. Didn't have a great game at the weekend either. Now, is that just 2 bad games, or is that he isn't a big game player? we'll have to wait and see. How time will tell over that. But for me, that's the biggest concern around the Lions, is whether they have that big game mentality. For the Hurricanes, it's the travel. They've come off the Lions tour, only had one game against the Crusaders, which they did win, to be fair, for form running into these games, and so they're going to be, there's a chance of them being slightly undercooked, plus also that travel is going to have taken its impact. If you want to know why I think that and why that's so relevant, have a quick look at my piece I wrote. That's a week in the life of a professional player. So much of that week is about recovery during the season, and if you're on a flight and travelling, you can't recover properly, and that's what a lot of it's about. So again, I think because of the travel, I'm going to back the Lions by 7, which means I think we're going to end up with a Lions Crusaders final. We'll just that's my prediction, which would be the two top teams in Super Rugby, which would be great. And being in Joburg at altitude, you've got to say that we could be seeing a South African winner for the first time in a long time. Thank you very much for watching. Please give us the old thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitter and Periscope, then please do share it as well. And don't forget to sign up for my newsletter, link above on Twitter, down below on YouTube. I will be doing a live 1-hour show on YouTube at 8 p.m. Tuesday New Zealand time, where I'll be talking about 5 hot topics with guests from New Zealand, Australia and South Africa, as we preview these games, talk about rugby laws and also about women's rugby as well. So do join me for that. You can catch the replay either on YouTube or look out or find #RugbyChat as now a podcast as well. So go and subscribe to that as well, please. Thank you very much for your time, and catch you all later.